Ithinar's Bloom by H. Jane Harrington. Chapter 11. The Weight of Mountains. Never underestimate the danger of a man who believes the gods are on his side. Master Kezias. Galvatine removed his ceremonial robes and handed them to his Demishuan servy. When she had finished hanging them neatly, she glided across the floor gracefully, like a dancer, like a creature of the heavens. The gods were good. They provided for their people, and Aralina was the proof. Despite his age, Galvatine still stirred with passion every time he laid eyes on her. While some of his youthful desires began to shrivel with age, the need for power, status, and wealth, to name a few, there was one lust that never faded. "What service can I provide your eminence?" Aralina asked, her voice as sweet and luscious as honey. "My shoulders ache ever so much, my dear," he stated. Aralina moved behind him and palpated his striated shoulder muscles gently, yet with a firmness that soothed away the tension. That she needed no further instruction told of her long years in his service. She knew him, could read him like an open book, and he appreciated service that needed little from him. They all knew their routines and were comfortable with his expectations. As Aralina worked out the aches and knots from his elderly body, Galvatine picked up his reports and began looking over the day's events. The words were blurry, so he scooped up his enhancing glass and placed it over the sloppily scribbled sentences. He should have sent for a master healer to address his failing eyesight, but age had done more than just toughen his meat. It made him increasingly stubborn. After all, if he called a healer for every little thing, they probably would have admitted him to the infirmary for the Eldon years ago. No, he would make do for as long as he could. Herilar, another of Galvatine's faithful servies, stepped into the room and bowed. "Your Eminence, Keeper Wardian awaits your urgent audience." "Admit him," Galvatine grumbled. As Herilar retreated to the parlor, Aralina slipped away as well. She returned with Galvatine's casual robes. Bless the woman, Galvatine thought. While he would have been more than happy to meet with the Grand Master of the Keepers of Magic in the comfort of his undergarments, it would not be seemly. The High Priest of Septaria must appear regal to his followers, even in his private chambers. 5 minutes later, Wardian strode into the room boldly, as if he owned Galvatine's apartments themselves. "Grand Master," Galvatine greeted with a practised smile, "what brings you to the Citadel at this hour? And barging into my chambers, no less. I should think you would be at home with the wife and children reading bedtime stories." "Forgive me, Your Eminence. I bring news regarding Prince von Asarion." Galvatine swallowed and sat upright, the fatigue evaporating from his muscles instantly. "Go on," he breathed. "Is it done, then?" Wardian, a middle-aged man of average height and build, placed his fists on the desk and let his gaze fall level with Galvatine's. "He has escaped us again. He was aided, Your Eminence. You failed to divulge that he would have assistance. I set my keepers into a trap. 3 lie dead in the Hatchel Forest, 1 outside the princeling's former home, and another aboard an air ferry. 1 more was injured while attempting to confront His Majesty outside the terminal entrance. That is 2 units. 2! How could you have been so careless?" The impertinence behind Wardian's rant raised Galvatine's blood. He prided himself in his reservation and level-headedness, but it was difficult to check himself in the presence of this haughty zealot. "Grand Master Wardian, I will thank you to address me courteously. When we committed to our treaty 14 years ago, you were somewhat more humble. If you cannot behave with respect in my home, I may be forced to rethink the terms of our association," Galvatine breathed. Wardian was not swayed. "You need us more than we need you, Eminence. Without the Keepers of Magic, your priests would be relegated to trained monkeys under the foot of the crown. You have no army of your own, and you have no authority over His Majesty's. You're powerless." Galvatine rose calmly and collected his mana around him. Uttering an archaic spell of enhancement in his head, he willed himself to appear larger and more powerful than his frail frame would normally allow. One of the benefits of being a prophet, he thought triumphantly, was the ability to manipulate magic. That he could call upon these older, forgotten spells ensured him a factor of intimidation to which many, even the so-called keepers of magic, had no access. Wardian backed away from the desk, swallowing his pride. The image of the high priest suddenly swelling to massive proportions before him must have shaken the man because he bowed low. Galvatine released the magic and sat, lacing his fingers. "Now then, I believe we were talking about how powerless and weak I am," he said conversationally. Wardian stared at Galvatine for a moment, and his jaw pulsed. I apologize, Your Eminence. I forgot myself. I am an old man, Grand Master, but I am no toothless bag of bones. You will respect me in my house. Your Eminence, Wardian began again, his tone carefully measured. I respectfully ask that you provide me with all the details of a mission before requesting the service of my keepers. We were unprepared for the addition of a new enemy. I was unaware of this development myself. Guardian Aurelius is currently occupied securing the release of the Queen from our diversion. Who is this new assistant, and what connection does he have to the prince? Galvatine asked. She, actually. The lone surviving keeper reported that the princeling was aided by a woman, who was attired in the traveling clothes of a man. He could not provide much detail except that she has use of elemental magics. She used an inferno to disrupt a sign above his head, which knocked him out cold. That was the extent of his recollection. And the princeling's current location? Aboard an air ferry heading to High Imperia. He made a contained casting from the ferry. Unfortunately, the keeper tracking him was killed in the explosion. Galvatine tapped his finger thoughtfully on his desk. Very well, keep me appraised. When the ferry lands, I want him apprehended. Take as many keepers as you need. If His Majesty's Royal Army interferes, I understand we will be prepared to fight. And Wardian, Galvatine added, do not fail. If Vonasarian is not terminated, we face a crisis unlike anything since the raising of the First World. I trust you understand what is at stake here. Vonasarian must not be allowed to live. He will destroy the world. Yes, Your Eminence. If that's all you have to report, then leave me. It's past my bedtime. Wardian genuflected and turned on his heel, exiting the chamber swiftly. When the door closed, Galvatine sighed and rubbed his temples again. He did not favor maintaining a relationship with the Keepers of Magic, especially when it meant dealing with the likes of Wardian. The Keepers were mostly zealots with only one purpose in mind, the protection of magic. They believed magic to be endangered, and they would do anything, including terrorizing and murdering innocents, to protect it. That they were devout in their beliefs was fine. The gods surely applauded their efforts. But Galvatine was not so obsessed with the protection of magic as with fulfilling the will of the gods. The Keepers carried out their beliefs entirely too far in his eyes. Of course, Galvatine himself had ordered the assassination of 2 princes, but such an act was entirely different. Their deaths were necessary. For the gods. For the world. Galvatine's sole responsibility, besides spreading the word of order, of course, was maintaining the will of the gods. And the gods would never have issued the Chaosbringer prophecy if they did not want action taken. It was a warning, a way to change the future. The murder of a royal was not a job that Galvatine relished, but it must be done. You carry the weight of mountains on your shoulders, Your Eminence. I cannot remove that burden, but perhaps I can make it diminish, if only for the night. Might I ease the tension away from the rest of your body? Arelina spoke softly in his ear. The survey had been so quiet, Galvatine had forgotten she was still in the room. I would appreciate that ever so much, my dear, he replied tenderly. Arelina took Galvatine's hand and led him into his bedchamber. Ah, yes, a gift from the gods indeed, Galvatine mused, as she unlaced the bodice of her dress and let it slip to the floor.